Hello, my name is Sophie Hanger and today I'll be carrying out a presentation on human immunity. Within this presentation, I aim to gain an understanding of non-specific defences against disease, covering the first, second and third lines of defence, as well as also gaining an understanding of specific immunity and the biology of vaccination. Before we investigate the body's defence against disease, we need to examine the organisms that cause disease and their methods of transmission. So what is infection? This is when the body is invaded by microorganisms such as bacteria, viruses and parasites that are not typically within the human body. They can remain localised to the region they enter the body or to a specific organ. However, they can potentially multiply and affect the whole body. Not all infections cause symptoms and therefore are not occasionally easy to identify. The four main causes of infectious diseases are bacteria, viruses, fungi and parasites. Bacteria are single-celled organisms responsible for illnesses such as cellulitis, strep throat, urinary tract infections and tuberculosis. Viruses are smaller than bacteria and not technically alive themselves, where they rely entirely on a host for reproduction. They cause numerous diseases which can range from the common colds to HIV and AIDS. Fungi are responsible for surface skin diseases such as athlete's foot and can also cause infections to the lungs or to the nervous system. And parasites can cause illnesses like malaria, which is transmitted by mosquito bites and can also be transmitted to humans from animal feces. Infectious diseases are transmitted through methods of direct and indirect contact. Direct contact with a person or animal that is a carrier for an infection is one of the most common ways to contract an infectious disease, and there are three ways that an infectious disease can be spread. Person to person, which can be through touching, coughing, kissing, sneezing and through sexual contact, with the person carrying the disease possibly not knowing they are infected or even showing any symptoms to suggest this. Animal to person, which can occur when a person is scratched or bitten by an infected animal, and this can be from wild, farm or pet animals who can all be potential carriers. Another example of transmission from an animal to a person could be by coming into contact with animal feces or urine. Mother to an unborn child can happen if a pregnant woman has an infection, which can then be passed through the umbilical cord to the unborn child. Indirect contact can occur when an infected person touches an object that a non-infected person later touches, such as a door handle. For example, if you were to sneeze into your hand and then open the door, this would then leave the germs on the handle for the next person who opens the door by the handle to become infected. Other common indirect transfer methods can be through insect bites, contaminated food or water. The body has three lines of defence, with the first two being non-specific and the third being a specific response. Non-specific defences are those that do not distinguish between one type of pathogen to another, but they do display the same response to all pathogens in the same way. The first line of defence is comprised of physical and chemical barriers to prevent entry of pathogens. Looking at the skin structure, the skin forms part of a system called the integumentary system that has three layers. The epidermis is the outermost layer that provides a mechanical barrier against the external environment, with a waterproof coating to protect it from infectious agents and toxins. The epidermis provides new skin cells every 28 days, replacing the old skin cells, and also produces a substance called melanin, which gives skin its colour and protects it from getting burnt from the sun's ultraviolet rays. The dermis lies underneath the epidermis, containing the sebaceous glands, arterial blood supply and sweat glands. The subcutaneous layer forms the deepest section and is comprised of connective tissues and fat. As long as the skin remains unbroken, it is able to function as the body's first line of defence. The mucous membranes line the surface of cavities and organs such as the gastrointestinal tract, respiratory tract, urogenital tract and vaginal tract. They protect open passageways into the body and prevent infectious agents such as pathogens and allergens from invading the body, whilst also letting nutrients through, enabling the body to uphold its healthy status. The second line of defence has a range of non-specific responses, with an injury to skin or infection normally causing an inflammatory response, which is a collection of cellular activities and a major component of the innate immune system's response to damage or infection. When the body detects an intruder, such as a pathogen, it creates a biological response to try and eliminate them from the body. The main signs of inflammatory response can be that the tissues in the infected area become red in colour, warm to touch, as well as swollen and painful, which causes mechanical pressure on the nerve cells. When an inflammatory response has begun, it will continue until the underlying infection has healed. I'm now going to talk about the third line of defence and discuss pathogens and antigens. A pathogen is a microbe that can cause an immune response and cause disease within the body. They could be bacteria, virus, protozoans and fungi. Protozoans and fungi are not as common but are still potentially very dangerous to the human body. Anything that is too small to be seen with the naked eye that can cause an infection is termed a pathogen. Antigens are the parts of the pathogen that tell your body that it is being attacked and are the parts of pathogen that cause the immune response within the body. Antigens could be any type of molecule such as a protein, carbohydrate, nucleic acid or fat. An example of an antigen would be proteins on a virus such as influenza. So what is acquired immunity? People aren't born with acquired immunity, but it is learned. When a person is exposed to the environment, the body's immune system encounters antigens where it attacks and develops a memory for that antigen. Acquired immunity is also known as specific immunity because of its tailored attack by the immune system. Artificial immunity is when human intervention is required to help target and destroy the attacking agent, with aid from vaccinations able to be utilised to give the body the required immunity to do this. Artificially acquired immunity is different because it involves some form of human intervention, unlike natural immunity, that entails exposure of the body to a pathogen without this intervention. The body's immune system starts to fight the disease-causing agent, and after successful protection against the antigen, the body generates a memory of the agent, enabling natural acquired immunity. We are now going to discuss the key cells of the immune system, which are leukocytes, also known as white blood cells. These are involved in defending the body against infections, and they are not a single type of cell, and there are 5 different types, all being produced in the bone marrow. These are neutrophils, lymphocytes, monocytes, xenophils, and basophils. Neutrophils are the most common type of white blood cell. They are medium-sized cells with irregular nuclei and many granules that perform numerous different functions. They attach to the walls of the blood vessel, consequently attempting to block the germs' access to the bloodstream, and are the first cells that reach the infected area of the body whilst acting in a process called phagocytosis. Lymphocytes are divided into 2 types, T cells and B cells. They are small round cells with a large nucleus located in a small amount of cytoplasm. They play a major role in the immune system related to antibody production. Monocytes are the largest type of white blood cell, providing them with the ability to digest large particles in a wound. They are less common than the first 2 types. They are granulocytes and turn into macrophages when they depart the bloodstream. Xenophils are a rare type of cell within the bloodstream. They have large granules that help in cellular functions and are important when it comes to allergies and worm infestations. They release toxins from their granules, killing pathogens and parasites, and high counts of this cell are usually associated with allergic reactions. Basophils are the rarest type of white blood cells and contain large granules. They secrete anticoagulants and antibodies that act against hypersensitivity reactions within the bloodstream, act against foreign invaders immediately, and contain histamine, which acts to dilate the blood vessels to permit more immune cells to reach the infection site more quickly. The acquired immune system is responsible for the destruction of pathogens once they have entered the body. On the first exposure of a pathogen, the acquired immune system learns how to attack and destroy it. When encountering infections, they are ineffective, but once a response has been created, a protective response can be made more quickly, allowing it to protect the body from harm using B cells and T cells. T cells are quite common, accounting for 80% of lymphocytes within the body, which mature in the thymus gland, and there are 3 different types: the cytotoxic, the suppressor, and helper T cells. Their function is to release substances into the blood and signal the growth and activation of B cells. B cells account for 10 to 15% of lymphocytes and produce antibodies used to attack invading bacteria, viruses, and toxins. They present antigens to T cells and provide signals for them to activate. Immunoglobulins are known as antibodies, which are proteins bound to antigens. Antibodies are used to target infection, recruitment of immune cells, neutralization of toxins, and removal of antigens, whilst also complementing activation. They are arranged in a Y-shaped configuration and have 2 identical light chains and 2 identical heavy chains. There are 5 types of immunoglobulins, with IgG being the main and only type that is transferred across the placenta from the mother to the fetus, providing the unborn with some protection against diseases that they haven't yet been exposed to. IgA protects the mucosal surfaces of the body, such as the mouth, lungs, and throat, where without this it can cause major infections. IgM has a different structure to the other types, where it is 5 normal immunoglobulins joined at their base and is the first one synthesized in an antibody response. IgE is the largest molecule and it is the only type that is present in low levels of a healthy person. This level increases considerably in response to parasitic infections and allergic reactions. IgD is an uncommon molecule with its true function not actually fully known. It is thought to function as an antigen response receptor on the surface of B cells. Antigens have a unique nature which allows the immune system to distinguish between self and non-self, enabling only the non-self to be attacked. There are 2 important factors that allow this, which are the major histocompatibility complexes 1 and 2, known as MHC1 and MHC2, and the human leukocyte antigen gene complex. Human cells display antigens that the immune system recognises as self and deals with them accordingly. When the immune system encounters an antigen of a red blood cell on the surface, it does not attack, where it is recognised as self. However, when it encounters an antigen that hasn't been seen before, this will be recognised as non-self, and the adaptive immune system response will follow. Both MHC1 and MHC2 are expressed on the surfaces of nucleated cells, acting as an early warning sign to the immune system. So what is transplantation? Transplantation is the process of moving cells, tissues or organs from one site to another, either within the same person or between a donor and a recipient. This is done to correct the malfunction of an organ system such as the heart, liver, lung, pancreas or kidney by replacing the damaged organ with a healthy organ from a donor. When a person receives an organ donation, their immune system may recognise it as foreign and non-self, ultimately causing rejection of the organ. And there are 3 types of rejection, which are hyperacute rejection, which happens a few minutes after the transplant, where the antigens are completely unmatched. If this happens, the tissues must be removed immediately so the recipient does not die. Acute rejection can occur at any time from 1 week up to 3 months after the transplant. All recipients of organ donation have some amount of acute rejection. Chronic rejection can happen over many years, where the body's immune system against a new organ slowly damages the transplanted tissues or organ. What is autoimmune disease? The body's immune system protects from disease and infection. If a person was to have autoimmune disease, then the immune system mistakenly attacks healthy cells in the body. There is a wide range of autoimmune diseases where they can affect almost any parts within the body. Although the cause of these diseases is still unknown, it is thought that some triggers for autoimmune diseases are bacteria, viruses, drugs, or chemical irritants. The classic sign of an autoimmune disease is inflammation, with the most common organs and tissues affected being joints, muscles, skin, red blood cells, blood vessels, connective tissues, and endocrine glands. Symptoms can be alleviated by eating a healthy, balanced diet, exercise, rest, and decreasing stress levels. 2 examples of autoimmune disease are rheumatoid arthritis and multiple sclerosis. Rheumatoid arthritis is a long-term condition which causes pain, swelling and stiffness in joints, normally affecting the hands, feet and wrists. The condition is caused when the immune system attacks the cells that line the joints by mistake, making them swollen, stiff and painful. There is no cure, but this can be managed by taking medicine, supportive treatments or surgery. Multiple sclerosis is a lifelong condition which affects the brain and spinal cord, resulting in a wide range of symptoms such as movement, balance and vision issues. This condition is caused when the immune system mistakenly attacks a healthy part of the body, which in this case is the brain or spinal cord. Like rheumatoid arthritis, there is no cure, but this can be controlled through steroid medicine or specific treatments aimed at individuals' MS symptoms. Acquired immunity is split into active immunity and passive immunity. There are 2 types of active immunity. Active natural immunity develops when exposed to a pathogen that causes specific disease which enters the body and begins to mount an immune response to try and attack the pathogen. Active artificial induced immunity is when an individual is artificially and intentionally exposed to foreign antigens to generate a protective immune response, carried out by having vaccinations to allow the immune system to produce an active and lasting response. Looking at passive immunity, natural passive immunity is when antibodies are transferred from one person to another naturally. This can occur during pregnancy when the antibodies are passed from the maternal bloodstream to the fetal bloodstream in the form of IgG. Artificially induced passive immunity is protection acquired by giving a person an injection or transfusion of antibodies made by somebody else. So what is vaccination? This is when the body's immune system is exposed to a weakened or harmless version of a pathogen in order to stimulate white blood cells. This produces antibodies to provide immunity against specific pathogens. If the person later becomes infected with the pathogen, the white blood cells that are required are able to reproduce quickly and destroy it, and this is known as immunological memory. Immunological memory is when the immune system responds to a pathogen that has been previously encountered quicker than the first encounter. Primary response is when a pathogen is encountered for the first time, with memory cells being produced to enable them to recognise the same pathogen if encountered for a second time. And secondary response occurs if the same pathogen is encountered for a second time, with memory cells recognising it and producing higher amounts of antibodies more quickly to fight the infection before symptoms become visible. The introduction of vaccines has seen diseases such as smallpox in 1979 and polio within Europe since 2002 becoming eradicated. Before this introduction, childhood deaths were more common due to diseases such as measles, whooping cough and polio, which by having vaccinations has provided protection, ultimately decreasing childhood mortality rates. Looking at statistics in England for cases of measles, they have estimated that around 20 million cases and 4,500 deaths have been averted since the introduction of the MMR vaccines in 1968. Consequently, this has created savings within healthcare, a reduced risk of antibiotic resistance, extended life expectancy, as well as cancer prevention. So what is herd immunity? This is when a high percentage of the population is immune to a virus or disease, and it is known as community immunity. For example, if somebody with measles is surrounded by people who are vaccinated against measles, the disease will not spread quickly and will disappear quicker without a widespread effect. Herd immunity can efficiently stop the spread of some diseases, making it vital that the public protects themselves, people who are unable to be vaccinated, as well as vulnerable people. Within the UK, there are numerous vaccination programmes that exist, making it widely accessible as possible to adults and children. The NHS provides these national programmes to ensure that people receive imperative protection against viruses and diseases that are still amongst us, and these programmes are carried out by doctors and healthcare professionals from the age of 8 weeks old and upwards. The seasonal variability and prevalence of infectious diseases such as norovirus, flu, and bronchiolitis can be very serious for specific age groups. Therefore, by having vaccinations for these widely available is a part of an effective method of controlling the widespread of diseases and their overall effect on the population. Thank you for listening to my presentation on human immunity.